Yet another week. Hope you had a good weekend. And I was happy that it rained yesterday. Supposed to be a nice day today. I'm sure it is. I haven't been outside since this morning.
That's a little cold.
It is?
50 minutes ago.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll warm up a little later. So I've got your homework returned to you as, and you have for me today selected exercises on workbook page 23 and 26. And I thought what I would do today is I would show you the answers to all of these and let you ask questions if you need any, and then after that we'll take a short half-sheet quiz. Okay? So let's take a look at page 23 first. You have all of these seventh chords in section A. I just want to make sure you're finding the right root, you're getting the right type of seventh chord, and you're indicating the right inversion symbol. Alright, so you have on the top row, you have numbers 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. So you want to check your answers there. Remember last week that we talked about how the base position symbols for seventh chords are 7 for root position, 6, 5 for first inversion, 4, 3 for second inversion, and 4, 2 for third inversion. And do let me know if you have questions as you look at these. You can recall also from last week that a seventh chord is in root position when all 4 of its notes are stacked in thirds. We know that a seventh chord is in first inversion when the third of the chord is the lowest sounding tone. A seventh chord is in second inversion when the fifth of the chord is on the bottom. And a seventh chord is what we call in third inversion when the seventh of the chord is the lowest note of all. Is it okay to go on to the next batch? Down below, looks like we have numbers 9, 10, 13, 14, and 16. You can tell me from last week, let's look at number 13 as an example. How can you, when a seventh chord is inverted, how can you find the root right away?
You look for the second interval, like the interval of a second, and show the top note in that.
That's right. So when the seventh chord is inverted, there will always be an interval of a second between 2 of the notes somewhere in that chord. And the higher of those 2 notes that form a second is always the root of a seventh chord. Good. Questions or comments? You're getting all the types of seventh chords, I hope. You're getting all the base position symbols. the numbers 4/3, 4/2, 6/5, etc. Then let's go next to page 26, where you had to do, I think, 1 through 17. That was the top half of the page. Ooh, this is falling apart. Once again, they're asking you to find the root of the chord, the type of the chord, and the bass position symbol. And I think there were just, well, it looks like in 1 through 17, I only found 2 seventh chords. The rest were all triads, if I'm looking at that correctly. While you guys are, might as well make efficient use of time. While you guys are checking your answers on that, I can go ahead and play these measures so you can hear what you just analyzed. This passage is in the key of G minor. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes sight reading in the morning is tough. Have you ever tried sight reading in the early? Well, it's not-
Sight reading in general is hard.
Yes, I would agree. All right, are there any questions or comments about these chords before we take a look at the quiz?
Read your number 12, actually.
Number 12? Yeah, you bet. All right, so let's see, I'm going to unfreeze this so I can get my hand to show up in here. Number 12. If I take an inventory, or I just look at all the pitches on the beat 4 of this measure, I see I have an A, an F, a C, and an E flat. That's 4 different pitches, so that tells me I'm looking at a 7th chord rather than just a triad. Because triads only have 3 different pitches. Even though triads have in 4 voices, triads will have one of their notes duplicated or doubled. There's still only 3 different distinct pitches in a triad. But on beat 4 of this measure, I have 4 distinct pitches, so that's got to be a 7th chord, first of all. Okay, so then what I do is I would probably, on a piece of scratch paper or in my mind, I would rearrange these 4 pitches so that I could stack them in thirds. And when I do that, I find out that the F needs to be on the bottom, the A is next, the C is next, and the E flat is on the top. Okay. Again, root position is going to give me very crucial, critical information about what chord member is what. Okay. So when I stack it in thirds, F is on the bottom, I know F is the root. And then when it's stacked in thirds also, I can figure out the type of 7th chord a lot easier. So for instance, let me just show it in the treble clef here. F, A, C, and there's an E flat because of the key signature. So I know that F, A, C is a major triad. And I know that F up to E flat, that 7th interval, is a minor 7th. So F is the root. It's a major minor 7th type chord because the triad's major and the 7th is minor. And it looks like the A of the chord is on the bottom in the example. Well, from this arrangement I can see that the A is the 3rd of the chord. Right? Root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. And when the 3rd of the chord is on the bottom, we say the chord is in 1st inversion. that's what that means. And the numbers to show or signify first inversion of a seventh chord are 6, 5. So that's why I have the 6, 5 for that one.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't really, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me unless I can arrange those 4 notes in stacked thirds to find out what's the root, what's the third, what's the fifth, what's the seventh, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I guess my question is, how do you differentiate, how do you find the root if, because there's also an ACE triad in there too. So how do you recommend finding the root of the chord first?
Well, okay, you're right, there is an A, C, E flat triad in there, but you have to include all of the different pitches on the beat. So if you include A, C, E flat, and you say, well, that's a triad, but that means you're ignoring the F then. And so if you take all of them into account, that there are 4 different pitches, they're not 3, then really the only 4 different pitches, you know that that's a 7th chord, not a triad. And if you take them all into account, this is the only way that you can arrange them so that they're all nice and neatly stacked in thirds.
Oh, okay.
And so this gives me the full picture, the full information. Yeah, I know there's A, C, E flat here. There's also F, A, C here, but it's really, I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of sense unless you see all 4 of the pitches and they're all stacked in thirds. So then you can say this is the triad portion, and this outside, that's the 7th portion.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, that's a good question. Any other questions or comments? Just takes a little bit of getting used to. Time and experience doing exercises and dealing with these kinds of things will help it become a little more second nature. All right, then what we'll do is, if you could just leave out a pencil, you can put everything else away. I'll give you a half sheet quiz here. And we'll take about 10 minutes to complete this. Oops. Very good. Today is the last day. I'd like to officially spend devoted to seventh chords. Today we are going to talk about seventh chords and their Roman numerals. That should basically finish them up. And then I believe on Wednesday, next class, we're going to start something called figure bass, which is very closely related to triads and seventh chords and what we've been doing the past several weeks. So hoping that shouldn't be too bad. So the Roman numeral system for seventh chords, it's pretty similar to that for triads. And I like to show the green table on the bottom of page 61 in your book. I think that's very informative. And it's kind of a time saver. You know, sometimes they say, well, most people say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I'm sure you don't want me to speak 1,000 words in class today. That will really run my mind. So we'll start by looking at the picture on the bottom of page 61. And the TV can help on me. Let's try this. It seems to be much better over here. All right. So, yeah, that's almost a little too big. So we can tell from this table what kind of Roman numeral symbols we use for the various types of seventh chords. You know we have the 5 types of seventh chords that we've been dealing with, and they're all listed here in the table. Let me just freeze it for you. And that'll be good. Okay. So, this is what we do for Roman numeral symbols. A major seventh chord, or a major seventh chord, however you want to look at it. The Roman numeral is a capital or uppercase Roman numeral, and with that Roman numeral you use a capital M and then the base position symbol. Now, in this table, the author has used a 7. So just assume that for right now, just for sake of argument, all your seventh chords are in root position. But if you had a seventh chord, let's say in first inversion, the Roman numeral for the top row would be capital 1 Roman numeral, capital M, and then instead of the 7, you use 6-5, because 6-5 is the base position symbol for first inversion. In other words, you only use the 7s over here on the far right column when your seventh chord is in root position. If your seventh chord is in inversion, you don't write a 7. Instead of that, you use the base position symbol for it. We'll get a little bit of practice with that in a moment. The Roman numeral symbol for a major minor seventh chord is a capital Roman numeral with the base position symbol, and that's it. The type of Roman numeral for a minor seventh chord is a lowercase Roman numeral with the base position symbol, and that's all. The half diminished seventh chord type is a lowercase Roman numeral with our circle with a slash through it. That's our half diminished symbol, and then the base position numbers. And finally, the fully diminished seventh chord is a lowercase Roman numeral with the open circle or degree symbol followed by its base position number. So is there a Roman numeral for any type of seventh chord where we don't have to write any base position numbers? The answer is no. For every seventh chord type, we always have to include some kind of base position number, either 7, or 6-5, or 4-3, or 4-2. It's always required. And again, we'll get some practice on that in a few minutes. But if you want to, again, mark this table, or mark page 61, or dog ear page 61, that would be perfectly fine, because again, that gives us some real critical information. Information you'll be using from now until, at least until the next class, through your homework and everything. Notice that in the table there is a unique Roman numeral symbol for each of the 5 types of 7th chords. That's kind of the design, that's the point, the idea. I mean, we don't want any Roman numeral symbols to be confusing or to look just like another type of 7th chords Roman numeral, because yeah, then it would be very, very confusing indeed. So at least the point is that we have a unique singular type of Roman numeral symbol for each of the 5 types of 7th chords. Of these 5 types of 7th chords, I don't know if we've talked about which is the least frequently encountered, or which is the most rare type of 7th chord. Did we? What did we say?
Right?
Well, yeah, that's for triads, yeah, but what about 7th chords?
I don't think we talked about
Okay, maybe we didn't, yeah. The top one there, the major 7th chord, is the rarest of them all in the style of music we are studying. And in fact, after our next test, we're not really going to probably see many major 7th chords at all anymore. The bottom 4 types, though, we'll see a lot of those. Okay. Now, at this point, what I did when we were talking about triads in Roman numerals is I started building triads on every one of the scale degrees in both major and minor keys. And we found out what kind of Roman numeral, what type of triad we got, and the Roman numeral label for each of those triads on all of these scale degrees. I don't know if this is good or, I guess it's maybe good news. I am not going to be constructing 7th chords on all of the scale degrees to find out the types that occur diatonically in the major and minor modes. I'm just not going to do that. It's pretty cumbersome, it takes a long time, and I don't feel you need to know, I don't feel you need to have memorized the exact type of 7th chord that occurs diatonically on every one of these scale degrees. I don't feel that that's nearly as important as knowing that information for triads, which we already talked about. Okay. But I do want to take just a few minutes, and I want to talk to you about a 7th chord built on one of those scale degrees. And that is the 7th chord built on scale degree 5. The 7th chord built on scale degree 5. So, you see up here on the board I have a major scale, and I have a harmonic minor scale written, and I'm just going to label the scale degrees quickly. And as I said, I'm not going to build 7th chords on every one of these scale degrees using just the pitches of the scale, but I am going to do that for the 7th chord that's built on scale degree 5. I ran out of space already. And then let's do that over here. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Let's take a look at the 7th chord that we get naturally or diatonically on scale degree 5 in the major key. Can anyone look at this G, B, D, F and tell me which of those 5 types of 7th chords that is? No?
The major minor.
That's right, it's a major minor 7. And if I use just the notes of the harmonic minor scale, notice the 7th chord on scale degree 5 in minor is the same, right? It's still G, B, D, F. Because I'm using the B natural, the raised 7th scale degree from harmonic minor. And so since it's G, B, D, F, even in minor keys, the 7th chord built on scale degree 5 is also major minor in type. So I think it's very critical and important to know that the 7th chord built on scale degree 5 is always major minor. It doesn't matter if you're in major keys analyzing music or if you're in minor keys analyzing music. The 7th chord on scale degree 5 is always major minor in type. And even though I haven't gone through all building of seventh chords on all these other scale degrees, the truth is that the seventh chord on scale degree 5 is the major minor seventh. How do I want to say this? I guess I'm trying to say that if you build seventh chords on all the other scale degrees, not one of the other scale degrees yields a major minor seventh chord. The only time we get a major minor seventh chord diatonically in music is when you build it on scale degree 5. All the other diatonic seventh chords are other types. Scale degree 5 seventh chord is the only major minor seventh chord that occurs diatonically. All right. Now, using that green chart right there, someone help me. How would I write? Oh man, you could do this. How would I write the Roman numeral correctly for a major minor seventh chord whose root is scale degree 5? What would be the correct symbol for that? Do you know?
It would be V4-3.
Okay, no, it's going to be a root position.
Oh,
So you
okay, I
don't
thought you meant the fifth numeral, sorry, so it would be 7.
That's right. And our Roman numeral 5, or our V, has got to be uppercase, so I insist that you write those lines, right, to show me the difference between a capital and a lowercase 5. The lowercase 5 chord is worthless. You hardly ever use it. It's good for nothing. It's lousy. So don't write it. But the capital 5 is all important. Anyway, so the symbol, the Roman numeral symbol for this would be capital Roman numeral 5 with a 7 next to it for root position. And that means the Roman numeral for this chord on scale degree, the seventh chord on scale degree 5 in minor looks exactly the same way. Okay. And finally, who can remember this? I think it was at the very beginning of this unit, that was right after our first test. Something that which will be on the next test as well. Do you remember the official names of all the scale degrees? Like tonic, supertonic, mediant, etc., etc.? Some people shaking their head, no, I don't remember those. Does anyone know what the name of scale degree 5 is officially? It's the dominant scale degree. And so it turns out that because this major minor seventh occurs on scale degree 5 in both major and minor keys, and it's the same type in both major and minor, it turns out that the major minor seventh chord type is synonymous with the phrase a dominant seventh. So if you ever hear somebody in music or jazz or whatever talking about a dominant seventh, they're talking about this type of seventh chord right here, major minor. Because it occurs uniquely on scale degree 5 in both major modes and minor modes. Both major music and minor key music. So I guess to sum it up, or what I'm trying to say, is that these three symbols, or these three terms, are all synonymous. In other words, from now on in this class, we can know that the major minor seventh means, automatically it means a 5/7, which automatically means a dominant seventh. All those terms mean the same thing. They can be used interchangeably. That's pretty important stuff because the 5/7 or the dominant seventh appears tremendously frequently in music. Almost as frequently as one chords, as tonic chords. Almost as frequently. All right. So, we know, man, the time really just flies in this class. We know that a Roman numeral, just like when we label triads with Roman numerals, so also with seventh chords. We know that the Roman numeral, the number itself, tells us what scale degree of a key serves as the chord's root. So because this is a seventh chord built on scale degree 5, that's why I used the Roman numeral 5. We know that the case of the Roman numeral, in this case uppercase or capital, gives us the type of seventh chord, especially when we accompany it with one of these other little symbols, like a capital M, or a half diminished symbol, or a diminished symbol. And we know that the base position of the chord, the appropriate base position, is indicated with the right base position numbers or inversion numbers sitting right next to the Roman numeral. Okay, so there's those three critical pieces of information with seventh chords, just like with triads. So, since that's true for both triads and seventh chords, what I'd like to do is start going through a few examples of labeling seventh chord types using the correct Roman numeral, and then also spelling seventh chord types based on the correct given Roman numeral. So let's say, for instance, we have a seventh chord that looks like this. And I'm telling you it's in the key of G minor. I need to know what the proper Roman numeral analysis is for this seventh chord. And these are the three things, this is the way I would do this. I would do it in three steps. Number one, find the root of the chord so we can know what Roman number to write. Well, is this seventh chord in root position? Yeah, it is. It's stacked in third. So which note is the root? The C, right? The bottom note. Okay. What scale degree now? Because remember, roots are tantamount, we have to associate them with scale degrees. What scale degree is C in this key?
4.
4, okay? So I know I'm going to write a Roman numeral 4. In fact, I'm going to actually put this down here just to know that that's the root. I'm going to give myself a little hint. Now, do I write a capital 4 or Roman numeral, or a lowercase 4, or which kind of symbol do I use over there? Well, we have to determine the type of seventh chord to figure that out. What type of seventh chord is this? It's minor minor. Okay. What's the Roman numeral symbol for a minor seventh? Lowercase Roman numeral with a 7, right? So I'm going to write lowercase 4 with a 7, and I'm done. Does that make sense how we got that? Okay. I'm going to just make a little more space here. Let's try another one. Maybe a little less straightforward, but still doable, not impossible. I'm going to give you a seventh chord in the key of E major, and the seventh chord is going to look like this. Oof. Is that seventh chord in root position? No, definitely not. But because of the trick not a trick, the shortcut I told you, what note is the root? The higher of the two notes that form a second, right? Which is E. So E is the root. What scale degree is E in the key of E?
1.
Uno. Yeah, that's right. It's 1. So I'm going to end up writing, scale degree 1. I'm going to end up writing a Roman numeral 1. Now, do I write uppercase or lowercase? Well, can anyone tell me? I mean, I can rewrite it here. Think of the E on the bottom. E, G sharp, B, D sharp. What type of seventh chord is that? It's a major seventh chord. What type of Roman numeral symbol do we write for major seventh chords? Well, we write a capital Roman numeral. We use a capital M. And then, am I going to use 7 for this one? We said it's not in root position. What inversion is it in? First inversion. So what number set do I write?
6.
So my final answer is that. Some students think that you have to write, I don't know, I mean, I can understand. Some students think you have to write the 7 always, and then you show the other inversion symbol. No. The inversion base position symbols we talked about last class are in place of or instead of the 7. You only use 7 when the triad or the 7th chord, when the 7th chord is in root position. Let's try a couple other types. What about if I asked you to, let's go to the bass clef. spell this chord in that key? Well, we should know from the number, the Roman number, that it's built on a scale of 5, right? That's the root. And what type of seventh chord is a 5/7? Always. Okay. So, what is scale degree 5 in A major? E? Is this going to be in root position? Yes, it is. So I just have to spell a major, minor, seventh chord on E in root position, which I know is that, E, G sharp, E, D. One more of these. Go back to the treble clef. And let's go to the key of E minor. And I need someone to help me spell on the staff this seventh chord. Whoa. What on earth does this whole Roman numeral symbol mean? What type of seventh chord do you think it's going to be? Especially when you have this thing. It's going to be a half diminished seventh chord. That's right. Okay? This tells me it's not going to be in root position. But I think I'd like to spell it in root position either in my mind or off to the side first. Okay, so I can get the notes right. In fact, I'm going to do it over here. What's the root going to be based on that number? Okay, we're going to be specific. What's scale degree 2 in E minor? F what? Is it not F sharp? Yeah, remember E minor has one sharp, F sharp? Okay, so the root of this chord, I'm going to spell it in root position first. And this is telling me the root is scale degree 2. When you think about E minor, F sharp is really, truly correctly scale degree 2 in that key. Half diminished seventh, diminished triad, minor seventh, F sharp A, C, E. And then finally, for my final answer, what inversion does this mean? First inversion, which means which of these four notes here goes on the bottom for my final answer? The third, which is the A. So my final answer is going to be something like this. And I don't need this anymore. I can put that on scratch. But that's correctly a 2 half diminished 6/5 in the key of E. That's how you spell that seventh chord on the staff. Part of your homework for next time is page 33 and 34. I just want to give you 2 hints before we go. The top of page 33, section A, oops, that's over here, is going to be very much like what we just finished doing. I think in your workbook, I think there are blanks above the staff that say you should put lead sheet symbols in there. Can you just completely ignore the lead sheet symbols? Just put the Roman numerals in the blanks below the 7. No lead sheet symbols. And finally, on page 34, you're going, oh, this isn't even the right, well, you're going to have to do some analysis of some chords in using a grand staff. We have done this once before with triads, but now on the top of page 34, there's an example in a grand staff that will have triads and seventh chords. So I want you to do your best when you analyze that passage. I want you to do your best to come up with the proper Roman numeral types for each of those chords. Again, some of them will be triads, which we've done before. A few of them may even be 7/4. And the best way to do that is to take a, just look at like, well, where was it? It was page, what page was that, 26? You just did for me today? Yeah. I should have probably done this. There's only a few 7/4 in here. For instance, like how, like what if I wanted you to give me the Roman numeral for chord number 9, and you know that we're in G minor. You see how it's a triad, D, F sharp, A? You see how its root is D, because if you stack those 3 notes in thirds, D has to be on the bottom. So what Roman numeral would this be if its root position D, F sharp, A, if you're in G minor? Does anyone know?
The lowercase 4, lowercase I. Is it
No,
minor?
no, it's a major triad.
Oh, so it's uppercase.
Yes,
Yeah.
but D is scale degree 5 in G.
Oh, yeah.
So it'd be a capital 5.
Yeah.
That's what the Roman numeral would be for that chord. But you see, you just try to look at all the notes in the grand stack on that beat. Just take a pitch inventory, write them out if you need to. Are there 3 notes or 4? That'll help you decide whether it's a triad or 7th chord. And then write it in root position if you need to on scratch paper. Find the root, that'll give you the Roman numeral you need. And you know, the rest is, you know how to do the rest. So I can't really go much further since we're out of time, but do your best for that on page 34, okay? If you need help, please come see me. I'd be happy to help. And that's all the time we have for today. So I'll see you Wednesday, if not before.
What happened was I worked forward and like a stoplight and I voltage into my radiator.
Well, I just hope that you can stay, you know, stay current at least mentally and not fall
Well,
behind.
I know why.
Okay, and I hope you can continue attending.